For anyone involved in the maritime and coastal world, we are at a huge inflection point. Climate volatility, it's not just about the weather anymore. It's about a fundamental reshaping of financial risk and, frankly, corporate responsibility. So today, we're going to break down the intelligent frameworks that are turning all this environmental uncertainty into a real, measurable competitive advantage. Okay, to really get a sense of the stakes here, you have to start with this number. $2.3 trillion. That's the mind-boggling annual global cost of disasters, according to the UN. It's just a massive financial drain. But what if? What if we could redirect that capital? What if we could invest in building resilience before a disaster hits, instead of just paying to clean up the mess? And that question right there, it gets to the very heart of this new reality. This quote just says it all. Climate risk is no longer an abstract environmental concern, it is a core financial metric. You see, mandatory reporting frameworks, like the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures, you'll hear it called TCFD, they now legally require companies to quantify and disclose their exposure to climate hazards. This isn't about just being green anymore. It's about sound governance and, honestly, financial survival. So, here's the game plan for this explainer. We'll kick off with this new maritime reality and the steep price of uncertainty. Then we'll dive into how we can shift from just raw data to actual AI-driven foresight, how we build a digital coastline, and how we can actually prove the payback of green investments. And finally, we'll see how this whole thing unlocks brand new ways to finance a resilient, future-proofed world. Let's get into it. All right, first up, a new maritime reality. This is the spot where extreme climate volatility literally crashes into strict ESG mandates. The game has totally changed. Unpredictable meta-ocean conditions, and that's just the complex dance of waves, wind, and currents, are now colliding with tough new regulations, and it's completely redefining risk for everyone: ports, shipping, offshore energy, you name it. And let's be clear, this is not some far-off abstract idea. The IPCC's projections are pretty stark. We are looking at a potential global sea level rise of up to a meter, maybe even more, by 2100. Now, for any coastal asset, whether it's a port, a terminal, or an entire city, that is a direct physical risk that has to be engineered for, and the work has to start right now. So, if the physical risks are becoming crystal clear, what about the money? What are the direct financial consequences of not pricing them in? Well, that brings us right to our second section: the high price of uncertainty. This consequence actually has a name: capital friction. And here's the bottom line. When you fail to accurately model climate hazards, that uncertainty infects everything. It's like trying to drive with the brakes on. Insurers and lenders, they hike their risk premiums, development costs blow up, and critical infrastructure becomes way more vulnerable. Simply put, your capital just doesn't work as hard because the risk is a big, expensive question mark. Just take a look at this UN Global Risk Report. It tells a really powerful story. See what the dominant long-term threats are? Large-scale natural hazards and rapid biodiversity decline. Environmental risks are no longer tucked away in their own little silo. They are now the central systemic risks that boards and major investors are having to grapple with every single day. So, the big question is, how do we fight back against this uncertainty and actually put a number on the risk? Well, that brings us to Section 3, from raw data to foresight. This is where we stop being reactive and start being truly predictive by leveraging Metocean Intelligence and, you guessed it, AI. It all begins with something called Metocean Intelligence. Think of it as the real-time, integrated study of everything happening in the water. Wind, waves, currents, tides, this is the absolute foundation. I mean, without a dynamic, super detailed understanding of the marine environment, any attempt at being safe, resilient, or low carbon, well, it's basically just flying blind. And let me tell you, the payback here is tangible. When you feed this real-time data into AI models, you get really clear returns. For example, AI-driven forecasts can pinpoint the perfect weather windows, slashing operational downtime. Real-time hydrodynamic data helps ship pilots navigate more safely, which lines up with ISO 45001 safety standards. And optimizing a vessel's route directly cuts fuel use and those Scope 3 emissions, helping everyone meet the IMO's 2030 and 2050 climate goals. Now, this real-time intelligence is incredibly powerful for day-to-day operations, but how do we scale it up for the big picture, for long-term strategic planning? Well, that's where we start building the digital coastline. So what on earth is a coastal digital twin?
Okay, the best way to think about it is as a climate wargaming engine. It's the core architecture for predictive risk management. You build this super detailed digital model of a port or a coastline, and then you feed it that real-time Metocean data. It lets asset owners run all kinds of what-if scenarios against future climate projections, testing the resilience of billion-dollar projects before a single shovel ever touches the ground. It's pretty incredible.
And this predictive power is absolutely vital when you're deciding how to build that resilience. I mean, traditionally, we've used gray infrastructure, things like giant concrete breakwaters. But now we have these powerful green, nature-based solutions like restoring mangrove forests that can often be even more effective and bring all these other great benefits along with them.
And the digital twin is the tool that really proves the business case for these new approaches. As you can see here, it can model physical risk scenarios to show exactly where an asset is vulnerable, which, by the way, generates the precise data you need for those TCFD financial disclosures we talked about. And crucially, it gives you a data-backed ROI comparison, validating how a hybrid green and gray solution will perform, and can even forecast storm surges to keep operations running.
This leads us perfectly into our fifth section, verifying the green payback. Because it's not enough to just say, hey, we planted some mangroves. You have to quantify their value. How do you actually audit these nature-based solutions and prove to investors that they deliver a measurable return?
While the process is incredibly rigorous and scientific, it starts with high-resolution auditing, using things like drones and AI to map biomass and growth. Next is dynamic performance tracking, which uses time series analysis to measure just how much carbon is being captured and how much protection the coast is getting. This is how a simple restoration project transforms into a verifiable, auditable asset, like a carbon credit or a biodiversity offset.
And the outcome of all this work is a powerful new metric, EROI, or ecological return on investment. This is what moves us beyond just vague promises and into the world of scientifically defensible assets. It ensures that green investments deliver real, measurable benefits for both the environment and, just as importantly, the balance sheet.
And this verification is what makes the whole system click for institutional capital and for regulators. This data-driven approach confirms you are in compliance with the specific standards that actually matter. TCFD for financial risk, the IMO's greenhouse gas strategy for shipping, SDG 14 for ocean health, and those critical ISO standards for safety and carbon accounting. It ticks all the boxes.
Which brings us to our final section. Financing future-proof resilience. How does this entire tech framework, from the data to the digital twins to the verification, how does it all unlock new financial instruments and turn resilience into something you can actually invest in?
It really boils down to this four-step loop. We call it the intelligence to resilience chain. It all starts with quantification, using that real-time Metocean data. That data then fuels prediction inside the digital twin. The prediction informs smarter action, like building hybrid infrastructure. And finally, validation through blue carbon verification closes the loop, proving the outcome and creating a tangible, valuable asset.
And this verifiable chain of data, this is what creates the foundation for new financial tools, like the resilience bond. Now, this isn't a grant or a subsidy, okay? It's a market-based financial instrument that channels big institutional capital into resilience projects, things like coastal protection or even renewable microgrids for ports. And it delivers competitive returns to investors. It's proof that building resilience is not a cost center. It's a value-generating investable strategy. Which leaves all of us with a final, critical question that every investor, every operator, every policymaker needs to be asking themselves. In this new era, is your portfolio simply exposed to climate risk, or is it truly engineered for climate resilience?